Hey friends, my name's Stevie Taylor. Welcome to the Gig Life Podcast. My guest today is Jess Ciampa. Jess is a highly respected and in-demand percussionist and multi-instrumentalist from Sydney. Percussionist for the Lion King stage show, long-time member of Musica Viva, on-call musician for the Sydney Symphony Orchestra, Australian Chamber Orchestra, Australian Brandenburg Orchestra, as well as a highly in-demand session player. You know, I did not realise the power, the versatility and the importance of the good old triangle until I spoke to Jess. Well, that's enough for me for now. Ladies and gentlemen, Jess Ciampa. Cheers. I think we're rolling. Jess Ciampa. Welcome to the Gig Life Podcast.
Thanks, Stevie. It's an honour.
Sweet, mate. Thanks for coming to the Gig Life HQ, so to speak.
Nice to be here.
It's just in my little studio here. So I'll start off by saying, what's a week in the life of Jess at the moment? In regards to what you got on and how many gigs you're playing and who you know.
Yeah, sure. Look, it varies wildly. You know, like the last couple of weeks, I was building towards a gig with a group called Synergy Percussion. So we did that Saturday. That was fairly intense. There were like 3 days of sort of heavy rehearsals for that.
Is that reading?
It's a heavy reading gig.
Yep.
It's like a contemporary classical music ensemble.
Yep.
Yeah, it was I was well out of my comfort zone.
Right.
Yeah, so that was stressing me out, losing sleep over that one for about a month and a half.
Oh,
before
shit.
Yeah, it was full on.
That's heavy.
Really full on.
How did it end up? Come it good?
It went well. That piece needed like 3 weeks of rehearsing. You know, it was 6 players that don't always play together. And pretty heavy, but it went okay, and the audience loved it. Yeah, we were all playing a piece of 2x4 each. That's it, amplified.
Really?
And like pulling different sounds out of it, and like the thing was all absolutely written out, but all this interlocking stuff, and you know, 4 in one hand, 3 in the other, while this person's doing 5s, and you know, and passing dynamics around. So like a wave. So someone described it like a sound bath.
Sound bath, yeah.
So very, very trippy sort of thing. And we did it at Trackdown Studios. Yeah. So that big room there, which is great.
Yep.
So, but in between doing that, a couple of gigs I play bass. A couple of bass gigs, an indie. So the same week we were rehearsing with that, I did a percussion gig with a guy called Luke Escombe, like a weird comedy cabaret show. Played kit with a group called The Nature Strip, which is an originals indie rock thing.
Yep.
Could You Diggers?
And that's just straight up.
That's just straight kit. Yeah. So, and then I'm singing in a couple of choirs at the moment. I'm having singing lessons.
Great.
At the ripe old age of 54. So it's really varied, you know.
And week on, week off, different. It's different.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how far are you usually booked ahead?
I got, Jewish weddings in the book for next July.
Yeah, right.
Know, so, yeah.
Right. Because I know when we were originally slated for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then, you contacted me and said, I've got this paying gig and,
Yeah.
So how often does that happen?
Things can come in like a fortnight out.
Okay.
Generally not much closer than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think I've had a Friday or Saturday night off for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, right.
It's been pretty solid those 2 nights anyway.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's roll right back to the start, man. So, you're with your surname Ciampa, that's Italian.
Yeah.
Were you born in Italy, or are you from?
No, I was born here.
Born in Australia.
Yeah. My folks came out in the early '60s.
Yep.
They met here, even though their villages are like 10k apart in Italy.
Yep.
And I was born and raised in Fairfield.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So lucky to be alive.
Yeah. Awesome.
But it was good. It was like a Catholic boys' school, low end sort of, and heaps of musicians came out of that school, and music journalists and all sorts of interesting people.
Cats that are still around today, doing stuff today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy, the Nature Strip I mentioned, the guitarist in that, we've been playing music together since primary school.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a couple of guys 2 years ahead of me that I work with all the time, and yeah, it's really good.
That's really cool. So, a musical family, mum and dad?
No,
musical?
not really. No. My first musical memory I have is my Uncle Vince playing Beatles songs, in his room, and me thinking, man, that's great. I'd love to do that. You know.
So rock and roll was this?
Yeah, it's sort of pop. My grandfather was into Italian opera. He played a bit of mandolin, which was pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah. And when did you first pick up an instrument? Was it trumpet the first thing?
No, guitar.
Oh, guitar. Okay.
So
right.
I was in year 4, and just they needed people to play at mass, so we learnt 3 chords and away we went.
Yep. Yeah.
And so then it was trumpet in year 7, and then all that time we had a great bandmaster at school who just gave us like free rein in the band room. You could go in there any time. Half the time you'd be skipping maths and you'd be in there sort of jamming.
Yeah.
So there was always a kit in there, and so I taught myself kit and plug in and play bass.
Yep.
And at the same time trumpet. Yeah.
Yep.
So it was a bit of a multi-instrumental thing.
Yeah, that's
happening.
cool. And when did the formal stuff come in?
I had a guitar teacher, but it was pretty simple stuff. Probably the first formal lessons would have been on trumpet. I was going into the con and having lessons there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it was sort of weird. I got into the con on trumpet as a trumpet major, and then sort of hit a wall and just wasn't getting any better.
What year was that?
I mean, nuts. I got in 83.
Okay.
And then in 85 they let me change majors to percussion.
Right.
But I trained as a high school music teacher.
Right.
So they didn't really care about us as musicians, and they needed percussionists for their wind band, so they went, yeah, sure,
Right.
So, yeah, I was lucky, yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't touch timpani or vibraphone or any of those instruments till I was about 22.
Right.
So it was very late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what led you to that sort of stuff?
I think it was actually seeing the group that I played with on Saturday, because my percussion teacher started Synergy Percussion.
Right.
And so I saw them probably in 84, and they did this piece by an Australian composer called Nigel Westlake. It was like 4 players on 2 marimbas, and it spun me out. I just thought it was beautiful, and I thought, man, I want to learn to do that.
Right, that was the moment, eh?
Yeah, that was a real...
Everyone's got one, eh?
I know, it just turns your life.
Spoken to a whole bunch of people, and there is that one moment,
Yeah, and you never forget it.
No.
I can still, if I think about being in that concert, I can still remember that feling,
Wow, that's awesome.
Just inspiring.
Yeah. And so where, how long were you at the con?
I was there 4 years.
4 years, okay.
So I did percussion with Michael Askell for 2 years of that.
Yep.
Yeah. But it was a bit of a rush. Like I wish I'd started percussion when I was 8.
Okay.
And so I feel like I've been playing catch up a bit. People that have had a real head start on me. But yeah, what can you do? It is what it is.
Yeah. So studying percussion at the con, are they laying all the instruments out for you, and you
Yeah.
I'm sorry, pardon my naivety. I don't know what it would be like there, so that's why I'm asking.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Or do you go in there saying conga or?
Yeah. No, well, you're expected to cover. That's the thing about being a percussionist. You're expected to play literally hundreds of instruments. To a certain level.
Yep.
So it's not like if you're a trumpet player, that's all you play. You might play piccolo trumpet and maybe flugelhorn and stuff, but. As a percussionist, I might do a recording session one day on vibraphone, and then the next day you got to play timpani, and then you got to do orchestral snare, and they're all like really different instruments and techniques,
Totally.
So you got to get, there are like major, you work on mallet instruments, so that covers glockenspiel, xylophone, marimba, and vibes, and you do timpani's like a whole separate animal, and then snare drum, orchestral cymbals. And then there's like all the small instruments, tambourines, castanets, triangle, Even, people, put shit on triangle, but to play a triangle well, man, it's not for the faint-hearted. So,
So let's expand on that then.
Yeah, right.
I reckon there'll be a bunch of people wanting to know about that.
Oh, look, I I did a recent gig with Tom Berlinson. He's doing like a Latin project, so it was all that bossa nova stuff, all that jabim. And man, I got lots of compliments after the gig on my triangle playing, which always strikes me as funny. But I pride myself on, the open and close thing, and playing a nice instrument and getting a nice sound.
I wonder if people actually realise there's an open and closed thing.
A lot of them
think
don't.
People are just picturing.
I know, yeah. Well, it's funny because I did a little tutorial thing with a youth orchestra on Sunday, and they got them hanging off a string, and every time you hit it, it spins, so it's hard to, So there's like basic things that you can learn about it, and where to hit it, all the different sounds you get. A good triangle should have hundreds of sounds in it, depending where you play it. It sounds ridiculous.
No. I'm really interested. Triangles, are they tuned?
No.
What? Yeah. So if you went out, you can buy different keyed harps.
So the thing, that's right. I mean, the thing about a triangle is it should have a real wash of lots of overtones.
Okay.
Yeah, and some will have a dominant, what we call fundamental tone.
Yep.
But then if you hit it somewhere else, you get all these other colours, and tones. So there shouldn't really be a pitch. If it's got a pitch, it's going to sort of limit it a bit.
Right. Okay. I mean, just muffled up maybe a little bit.
But if I'm doing a session, I'll take 4 or 5 triangles because one will sit better in a track than another.
Right.
And they won't even realise you'll play it, and they go, "Oh, that doesn't sound so great. Let's lose the triangle." And then you go, "Oh no, let me try this other one," and it just suddenly the overtones of that one sit better with the key of the song.
Wow.
Same with congas. People don't realise that about.
Yeah.
I'll ask what key are we in.
Yeah.
And they'll look at me like I'm insane. And I'll go, well, we're in D, and this conga's a C sharp. I want to tune it up a bit so it sits. Yeah, basic,
Yeah. Yeah. Were you playing sort of rock band sort of stuff out of school?
Yeah.
Was that the first sort of thing?
Yeah.
First sort of thing you're doing?
Well, I mean, in terms of gigging and sort of nighttime gigs, I played in a band with the guy I mentioned from primary school and another guy, Bill Gibson, who was 2 years ahead of us. Mm-hmm. We were in a trio called Smelly Tongues.
Cool.
Which was named after a song by the Residents.
Okay.
And we were described as thrash jazz.
Thrash jazz, yeah.
So it was a bit prog rocky, but it was all original songs written by John and that was a heap of fun. So I've always done that, and then that became another band called Upsadaisium, and they all seem to be mostly with this guitarist John Incarnaso, who I went to school with. So I love the rock thing. I'm a rock drummer. I've played in jazz things, and I do the occasional Latin thing, but and people will try and book me for Latin gigs on kit because they know me as a conga player.
Right.
But I don't have the feet for it.
The feet, that's the big difference.
To play kick-ass fusion samba. Hire Gordon Rittmeister or Steve Marin or someone or Giorgio Rojas. That's their thing. Yeah. I'm a rock drummer. That's
Yeah, that's cool. When did you turn pro? Or did you? Was there any other job before?
No, I've always. Yeah, I mean, when I graduated from the con, I taught in high schools, but I only lasted about 6 months. So I sort of fell into playing, and I was doing Latin gigs, were probably the first paid gigs I did. I played in salsa bands, either bass or timbales. Mm-hmm. And then I was lucky enough that my percussion teacher was playing in a group that was doing school shows through a company called Musica Viva. Mm-hmm. So he asked me to fill in for him, and then that group asked me to join. And you're still there today? Yeah. 30 years, yeah. Do it with different groups. But I love that gig. It's really great.
And what does that entail?
So you turn up at a school and you do a concert for an hour, and you probably do 2 or 3 of those a day. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the school will have 3 shows, sometimes it's 3 separate schools. Mm-hmm. But the schools get a teaching kit, so they get a recording of what you're going to be performing, and there's activities to go with it, looking at the rhythms. Mm. The one I'm in at the moment is a song-based group, so all the lyrics are there, the songs are there. So it provides all these great resources for the teachers and the kids.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it might be the only live music those kids ever see,
Yeah, right.
That might turn them on to because, I mean, that's what happened to me. A Galapagos duck, which is a very old Australian jazz group came to my school out at Fairfield, and I was a trumpeter. And they were amazing, this incredible jazz group. And we had a bit of a question time at the end, and I asked the trumpet player, I said, what's your job? And he said, well, this is I play trumpet, you know. And my world just exploded, you know. I thought, man, you can play music as a living, you know. It just never occurred to me.
And you could possibly be doing that for some other kid now.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Have you seen it happen?
I've had kids come up and say, I want to learn an instrument after watching this, and I just go, wow, that's my job's done. You know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you haven't seen them further down the track
I haven't.
Yeah.
But I'd love to.
It would be hard to
it's hard to follow that up. But I have met a couple of people that remember me coming to their school, and they're 19 or 20, and they're playing music, you know.
Yeah, cool.
Some of them were musicians then, and it just encouraged them to think about a life in music. But I'm very aware that every school I go into, you might be changing someone's life, you know. Yeah, it sounds a bit...
No, that's...
You know, but it's the truth.
It is the truth, absolutely. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did your formal training ever sort of end, or are you still always looking... meaning different teachers along the line?
It sort of came to an end at the end of the con years.
Okay. You did,
I just sort of stopped. Occasionally, like when we did The Lion King, I had to learn, 3 or 4 instruments I'd never played before. So they basically sent a guy out from the US to teach all the percussionists, how to play these things that we had no idea about, Because some things, there were just no teachers here to learn how to do them properly.
What were they? What were those instruments?
One of them was, shekere, the big shaker, which, has a long tradition mainly in Cuba. And there are guys who do it now, but back then, 15, 16 years ago, the first time we did the show, there was just no one that you could learn that from. Berimbau, Brazilian instrument. There are Brazilian guys here who know how to play it, but they're a bit funny about teaching it to gringos. I tried to get into the Brazilian community. It's a very special instrument to them. It's got religious and spiritual sort of...
Similar to a didgeridoo type.
Absolutely,
I've got one.
Yeah, very cool. But same thing, it's just not that simple to walk up and... But the only thing I'm having formal lessons on now is singing.
Singing,
I've been doing heaps of singing. I've always sung backing vocals and stuff, but I've been getting right into it. And
that's cool.
So like classical.
To a point where you're reading?
Yeah. So we're doing, sight reading stuff and learning Italian arias, and it's been good for me.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. The whole reading the notes and singing the notes, as opposed to... everything else you can see it. You can see it. You know where it is by looking over there. But
absolutely,
it's incredible. Yeah, the voice is amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of singers, like a lot of opera singers, can't actually read. They have people called repetiteurs, so they go into a room with this piano player and he just constantly bashes their line over until they learn it from memory. So it's good. It's good to be able to sight sing, to actually just get used to the intervals and know what the jumps are, and so it's
So just on that a little bit, again, excuse my
no
ignorance on it.
This is how we learn.
Yeah. Finding your... So do you have like a middle C type
like
in your
perfect pitch
instrument
thing? No.
type thing?
Well,
you know what I mean was,
Like
when you go to a piano, you've got your, and you know what that sounds like every time. With your voice,
yeah.
Do you have that note, and do you know what it is? So if you're looking at the notes.
Yeah, no, not really. No.
Okay,
I mean that's
so you need to hear somebody play the note.
Yeah. I can generally, I know the limit of my voice, so I know, a G at the bottom is where the bottom, but that changes every day. Like
course.
Today was a crappy day with air quality.
Oh yeah.
That affects your singing.
Yeah. Right.
So. No, people with perfect pitch do that. People that have perfect pitch, you ask them to sing an A, they sing an A. I can't do that. But once I've got the piano happening, or someone just gives me a C, I can find a G from that C, or a B flat, or whatever I need.
Right.
Whatever the song.
Yeah, I just thought, was it something that you can just call it? Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
No, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be a handy thing, but a lot of people, it's a bit of a curse. Like I have a friend who has it. I remember watching her rehearse with a choir, and she was like in pain, you know, like wincing. And I said to her later, "What's up?" She goes, "Oh, couldn't you hear it? The whole choir went like a quarter tone flat."
Oh,
It's like, man, I can't hear that, but she can, you know, and it just caused her agony, you know. So
She couldn't adjust.
no, well, the choir goes, what can you do? You got
Yeah,
20
yeah.
other people singing out of tune. You can't fixate yourself.
Yeah,
So just so I think it's a bit of a curse in a way.
yeah, right. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Lion King because I wanted to ask you about
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
Now, this was the version of the Lion King when it first came to Sydney. Is that right?
Yeah, about 16 years
Yeah,
ago.
I remember seeing it. Yeah, and Jay
then-
Lagai was.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Mufasa. He
Yeah,
was
Mufasa.
great.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So good.
how did that come about? And then let's maybe talk about what a day in the life of that
doing
show.
that show? Yeah,
was and
sure,
how long
sure.
you ran it for, and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. It's fascinating.
So I actually got a phone call because normally with musicals in Sydney, the music director usually knows who they want, so they'll just book people, you know. But in this case, the American producers wanted to hold auditions,
Okay.
and which is great. I mean, every show should do that, you know, because there's so much politics and stuff, you know, that people don't get a look in, you know, who should be doing some of the shows. So I got a phone call, like saying, this is on, the Lion King's happening, and they want to audition people, and we thought you'd be suitable. Do you want to come in for an audition? I went, yeah, sure. So they sent us music. So it's an interesting show because everything's written down, and they want what's written. There are moments of improv, but not a lot. And so I had to listen to the album, and I followed the music, and I did a little setup at home with the instruments and just learnt it. And then we went in, and there were about they did it over 2 days, and each day there were like 8 people auditioning, and it was very interesting. There was a bit of psyching out going on,
Of course.
which I've never sort of experienced before.
Yeah.
There were a couple of African dudes who are amazing djembe players, like can play rings around me, but don't read and don't follow a conductor. So they were looking for, like, the skill set was really, you know, broad. Like you had to. So, for instance, you know, I had one of the djembe dudes came up to me and said, noticed the music under my arm and went, "Oh, Jess, you're a good reader." And I went, "Oh, yeah, you know, I studied." And he said, "Oh, I cannot read, but I have the African feeling, and that's what they're looking for." I'm like, "Oh, man, come on." You know, all that sort of stuff was going on.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, so this dude, the first thing we had to do was play Circle of Life, you know, that song. So it starts with a shaker, you know, so you go and then with your left hand you got to go on a big African jun, you know, goom, ba ba on the djembe.
Yeah.
This guy had never played shaker in his life.
Right.
You know, so this is going out the window and his left hand sort of, you know, and it was, so I thought, yeah, well, there's great.
There's one gone.
Yeah. Next, you know.
Next, yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting because I think what won me that gig was my shaker playing.
Yeah.
Like that, we did a song called Shadowlands. A lot of it's just the voice and the shaker. You know, one of those little LP barbell shakers. And so the conductor, you know, was conducting it, and he sort of looks at me and he moves the conducting to slow down a bit just to see if I'd follow. And I went with him, and then he sped up again, and he smiled at me, you know, and I thought, oh, well, that's a good sign.
That's a good thing.
That's a good sign,
Yeah.
you know. So a lot of that show was, you know, the little stuff, the shakers and the shekere and you know, because like I said, I'm not a djembe player, like I'm a conga player, and timbales and stuff, but there was a fair amount of djembe in that, and that's not really my thing. I got by and I was fine, but so I got through the next round of auditions and then the next, and finally got offered the gig.
Great.
Yeah, it was a hard slog, like talking about, you know, a day, a week in the life of that show, because it was 8 shows a week, and I didn't really have the hands for the djembe.
Yeah, right.
So I was really lucky because they actually let me do in that show what they do in New York and London, which is you're allowed to take half the shows off a week and do other gigs. Now that doesn't happen in any. That's why I haven't done any shows since then. I get offered stuff, and then I say to them, "Oh well, I need this date off because I got a gig with Jeff Duff, and I need this. I got a tour here." And oh no, you can't take any time off.
Yeah.
It's like, dudes, you know, it's ridiculous.
Yep.
And so in Lion King, I had 4 other guys who could fill in for me that they were happy with, and it's like, you know, everyone needs to relax. And
So you were the number one. They dipped for you.
Yeah. So we all,
Yeah.
and the other. So there were two percussionists
That's it, yeah.
that were up in boxes, like the audience could see us. We weren't in the pit with the rest of the
right.
band. Yeah. So we were visible and we could see the show. So it was part of the colour and movement, man, to have all this stuff up there. But you know, they just, I've seen the New York contract, and the reason to give, you know, you can take 45% of the shows off and keep the gig. And the reasons are A, to relieve boredom, B, to share the work around.
Is that what it says in the contract?
Yeah.
To relieve boredom. That's brilliant.
To C, to keep, you know, in case of an emergency, there's people that know the thing, you know.
Yep.
Like when I got asked to do the Carole King thing, and they wouldn't let me, you know, take their stage, so I couldn't do it. But I said to them, what are you going to do if the drummer gets sick?
Yeah.
You know, and you don't have a kit player to come in and do the show. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So that's my problem with shows in Australia.
Right.
You know, so I'd only do, because I'm a freelance player. You know, there are guys who go from show to show to show. Like there are percussionists who just spend their whole life going from musical to musical. But I'm not one of those guys. So I've got to keep my freelance work alive, and The Lion King was great for that. You know, and you know, gave a lot of other guys work, and
That's
you know, it was good. And I got to save my hands because it was a killer.
Yeah.
Like I go home from a show and put my hands on ice so I could move them the next day. Because I just don't have... I remember the first time, because I was also looking after the drums, so for djembe skin split, I'd have to take it to get repaired.
Okay.
So I took it to, you know, Sibo Bangura, who's a Guinean djembe player, like a master drummer. You know, and I thanked him, I shook his hand. You know, he's got a callus on his hand that's like, you know, 2 centimetres high.
Right.
From playing from the age of 5. So, you know, it's no wonder I had to ice my hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, but I loved it. It was a great show. I learnt a lot. There was a bit of improv where I was. There's moments where I'd watch the dancers and work with the dancers, which is really great.
Did you have to dress?
Yeah,
being on show.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we had to wear, you know, what I call a Fred Flintstone sort of vest. The other guy on the outside was Barney, you know. So it wasn't too bad. It was just this vest, but it got bloody hot, man.
Yeah,
like
right.
in summer in that theatre.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't too bad. No face makeup or...
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, all those poor buggers in costume that had to be, like, you know, Jailer Guy had to be there an hour and a half before to get the Mufasa makeup on. And, and if they had lots of Kiwi boys in the cast with the tats, you know, so they had to cover the tats with makeup and all that stuff,
Yeah, and how long did that run for?
The first time it went a year and a half.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, huge, you know, so it was great. And, you know, for a percussionist too, the gear's there, they own it, you just turn up and play, nothing to set up, nothing to pack down, you know, so yeah, it was a real luxury. Yeah, no, I loved it, I really loved it. And then the second time it came back about 5 years ago, it did, I think about 10 months.
Yeah, and you were on it again?
I did it again.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Was it the same bunch of guys in the band?
No, different players, different kit player. We had Jamie Kastrousos, I don't know if you know Jamie.
Steve's told me about him. I've contacted him. We're going to...
Yeah, you should have a chat.
We're going to catch up. Yeah.
Beautiful drummer, really beautiful drummer. But Dave Stratton on bass, same bass player. Yeah, a few different players. Yeah, but yeah, good fun. Really good fun.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah, that's cool. And you've done some movie soundtrack stuff as well.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure.
What tracks? What sort of?
Look, I've done hundreds, and most of them I can't remember. I did one last week at Trackdown Studio. They're always exciting. It's always fun to play.
Yep.
Different quality of composers. So you go in sometimes and it's just clear they've got no idea about writing for percussion, and you sort of just get through it.
Yeah, right.
And then other people are fantastic. Did Australia, the Nicole Kidman film, and that was David Hirschfelder, who's used to play with Farnham, and great composer, writes really well for percussion. So yeah, that one's probably the most... Oh, Happy Feet, it's probably the most famous one I've done,
Oh,
but it's funny because, you know, the film comes out, I went and saw it with 2 of the other percussionists who played on it. It's like all the stuff you played sort of buried, you know. It's just... Oh,
really?
Oh, really hard to hear.
Oh, so it's not the feet tapping stuff, you're not playing that stuff?
No, there's a couple of moments I can hear where I go, oh yeah, I remember doing that, and it's like flamenco hand clapping.
Oh,
you know, so it's 4 of us doing all this hand clapping. They made us wet our hands so we got a different sound.
Right.
And, yeah, but a lot of the stuff gets buried. And even Hirschfelder, when we did Australia,
there's all this heavy drum stuff, big Japanese taiko drums, and we're going, thinking, oh, well, this will be big. And he goes, well, knock yourself out, guys. This is during the bombing scene of Darwin. He said, you won't hear it over the bombs. And he was bloody right,
Yeah.
We're in there trying to listen to it. It's just explosions everywhere,
Yeah.
So what can you do?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I've done a couple of short films. They're normally better. The soundtracks seem to be more forward, and often they'll be sort of quirky, and they won't really, bring weird instruments along. And but it's fun.
Am I right in saying that the session work for percussionists wouldn't have dried up as much as it would for drummers and stuff, because it's a little bit harder for the home producer to emulate a good percussionist, whereas
absolutely
there's so much good drum software out there where you can just pull up a groove and
absolutely
not so much.
A lot of the sessions that we go in and do an overdub, the drum tracks are clearly off a machine. A lot of the time. Depends on the style of the music, but but it is, and I'm lucky because some of the instruments now, like marimbas and vibraphones, you can get amazing samples that sound fantastic.
Oh, right.
But I still haven't heard a good conga sample, that sounds like flesh hitting flesh.
Right.
And the other one that's hard to replicate is timpani. So even if there's only one percussionist on a session for a film, it'll often be a timpanist, because it's really hard to get good timpani sounds, I think. I haven't. People use them and they sort of get away with it, but if you're a percussionist, you can hear it.
Yeah. Do you get called for timpani work?
A little bit, not so much. I'm not really, I own some, and I'll do the odd. The last timpani session I did was that Peter Allen film, that drama series they did, so I played timpani on that, but it's not really my thing. There are guys in town that are real, almost timpani specialists, and
Yeah. Have you noticed the sessions sort of quietened off in the last sort of 5 years?
Even
longer. We could even go longer.
Yeah, it has. Look, it's up and down. It actually depends on the Australian dollar, because when the dollar bombs, when it's doing bad, there's heaps of film work, because it's cheaper to record here than in LA.
Right.
So we'll often do a session, and the composer and the producer are on the computer in LA, and they're Skyping in the control room, and we're recording. Yeah, so it really depends on the dollar a lot. So when the dollar was around 60, whenever that was, maybe 7 years ago or something, there was a lot of film work. Yeah. So, and then it got quite a bit, and now it's picking up again. Now it's sort of 70-ish. It's weird.
Yeah. I never thought of that.
Yeah. So we were doing big Hollywood films, and I remember doing a Nicolas Cage vampire film and a few other things, and they were recorded.
A Nicolas Cage vampire film.
Yeah. I think he was in it. Daybreakers, I think it was.
Oh,
called.
right.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
He's a weird bugger, that guy. Anyway,
very strange character. Yeah, I like him. I think.
Yeah. He's pretty cool. Who are your bass player influences?
Oh, that's a hard one. That's really hard. I like I like people like Victor Wooten,
that kind of stuff.
I've seen him a couple of times, and he blows me away. I just think that's ridiculous level of skill, that guy. And the usual people, Jaco Pastorius and all those guys. But I got to be honest, I don't sit and listen to a lot of that. I listen, if I'm going to put on music at home, it tends to be pop.
Yeah.
And so the bass players I like are guys who are pop bass players who play interesting lines.
Pino, that kind of.
Yeah. Pino Palladino's fantastic. I'm into Elvis Costello. He's always had Bruce Thomas. He's an earlier bass player, beautiful bass player, really melodic. The Motown dudes, James Jamison, all those dudes. I mean, I love melodic, and McCartney actually. If I had to pick one bass player.
Yeah.
He's fantastic, but more obscure guys. I play with a band that does a tribute to an English band called XTC that no one's ever heard of. Their bass player Colin Moulding is astounding. It's like he picked up where McCartney sort of left off and just kept going. So guys who play melodically, and I'm not a chop dude. I don't like. I'm the same on kit. Like I wish I could do what people like Gordon do, but I can't. And so I try and do what I do and try and make it feel good, and So chops, I can appreciate it, but often it just leaves me a bit cold. Unless it's really musical. I mean, Gordon's amazing. He's very incredibly musical. Hamish Stewart, if I had to name one drummer in Sydney, he would be the guy. He can do some of that stuff, but doesn't. You can hear him play a whole song and he'll just groove his ass off for the whole song and not throw anything, and that makes you go, oh wow. But it just feels good. It makes you want to dance.
Yeah. And who are your kit influences?
Elvis Costello's drummer, Pete Thomas. He's amazing kit player. I would say Hamish. Hamish Stewart in town. I love playing percussion with Hamish because he actually gives you room. He adjusts his playing because he knows you're there. So I don't get to play with him a lot, but when I do, man, it's just fantastic. I'll fill in sometimes with a group called the Catholics. Fabian Evia plays percussion with them, but if he can't make it, I'll sometimes do it, and playing with him's great. Pop drummers. I used early Toto and all that stuff. Just fantastic. But I don't sit and listen to drummers. I like listening to songs and
music,
I like to forget. Like last time I saw James Taylor, with Gad and Jimmy, I kept forgetting there was a kit player on stage and a bass player. And that's the magic, is when they melt so seamlessly into the song, you forget they're there.
It's Jimmy Johnson, eh?
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I forgot he was on stage. I kept forgetting. I'm listening to James. Yeah. And you just, because they're playing the perfect part, Yeah. And at no point do they play anything that makes you, that is like, look at me, look what I can do. Never, they're just playing for the song. And Gad's the same. Yep. But if you go see him with his group, obviously he pulls out some
Did you
stuff.
see him a couple of years ago?
I didn't. I'm kicking myself. Yeah, I know.
I've said this in a few podcasts. People are getting sick of me going, oh, what's Steve Gadd's story again? But, was just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the stuff on YouTube, various things, and there's incredible solos where simple ideas, that just build beautifully and musically, and it makes so much musical sense. Yeah, he's but other than that, no, I'm not. I've gone to I don't like going to clinics. They drive me crazy. I went to one that I won't name the drummer, an American drummer that was just complete ego. Right. The one clinic I've gone to that I really enjoyed, but it wasn't a clinic, it was like a recital, was Terry Bozzio.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I was in Vancouver on tour and I had a day off and he was just like doing a clinic and I went. And I don't know if you've seen the kit he plays. Yeah. I mean, it's insane. Yeah. Something like 12 pedals playing remote, Yeah. So he'd set up these ostinatos with his feet that were just, I would have trouble just doing the feet. And then he's playing melodies on the toms and cymbals over that, and it's just one of the most beautiful things, And he's got chops to burn, but it was about the music, it was about the piece he was playing and developing musical ideas, But I should have left at question time, because then it's like every meathead wanting to know what sticks he uses. And, and you could see him suffering, So I thought, bugger it, I'll put up my hand and I'll ask a question. Yeah. And because there was one thing he did that was an Arabic rhythm with his feet. And so I put up my hand and he goes, yeah. And I said, that rhythm you played, ballady, with your feet, did you learn that first on Darabuka, or did you just apply it immediately? And he said, oh, thank God. And then, went off for like 20 minutes.
Great.
Yeah, so it's like great. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. That's really cool. Did you see when Dennis Chambers came out a few years ago with the Santana percussion?
No, man. Yeah, that was ridiculous, I would imagine. Yeah.
So, touring, have you done much... Do you do much touring these days, and did you do touring when you were younger? And who were they?
I did. Most of my touring was probably 5 years ago as part of a group called the Spaghetti Western Orchestra, which was a 5-piece group. Most of the guys were from Melbourne. Yep. I was filling in for a friend. So we did we toured Europe, maybe sort of 4 months at a time.
Oh, yeah.
Or 2 or 3 months. Most of the touring I do now is for Musica Viva, doing school shows.
Yep.
So you go and you do, like this year we did 3 weeks in the Northern Territory and 3 weeks in regional Queensland. Next year, I think, not much touring. We got a month in Tassie. So, so not a lot. I haven't done a heap. I'm not one of these guys that goes out for 3 months at a time with a rock band sort of thing. I haven't done, anything like that. I don't know how I'd stand up to that. Yeah. The school show thing is at the most like 3 weeks, and that's sort of, once you get into areas where there's no decent coffee, I start to lose it. And there's only so many steaks you can eat night after night.
Yeah, right. Little chicken snitty.
Oh man, the chicken snitty. I miss my Sydney food.
Yeah. I noticed on Facebook the other day, this is kind of not really about your career, but you went and saw the David Byrne.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, you want to talk about that?
What a show.
I read some reviews.
Yeah.
And,
that guy
totally,
he just totally deconstructed what a gig is.
Yeah.
Like it just, it was like a bare stage, like a box, and there was this metal curtain on 4 sides, the back and 2 sides, and every single instrument in that group, so there were no instruments on stage, every instrument was portable. Mm-hmm. So this poor guy with a synth, like on a harness.
Yeah.
And I think like 4 percussionists, a bass player and a guitarist and himself. That was it. And so they were all wireless mic'd. And so all the grooves were built between 4 or 5 people. So one dude would have like a bass drum part, that's all he'd play. Another dude had a little setup with a hi-hat and a snare. Another guy had a tom, a detuned tom. And, they were all in grey suits and barefoot. And there was all this bloody... Oh, and there were 2 backing singers. And there was just this... Everything was choreographed, So, they'd hit a section of song and the drummers would split and form little formations. And it just looked amazing.
Yeah.
The sound was great.
Yep.
Like I was thinking, oh man, there must be some stuff on tape. Like they must have click. But at no point... actually, there was one point where I heard a little hi-hat thing and I thought, oh, no one's playing that. And then my friend who was reviewing it mentioned later there were people behind the curtain that were playing that weren't on stage, and he was right. So, and Dave Burr made a point of saying, I just want you to know that everything we're playing is live. It's all produced by these people. There's nothing... people think, they see the show and they think we're playing along with stuff on tape. But it was just phenomenal. And 3 of the percussionists were Brazilian dudes. So they're playing... At one point, there were 3 of them playing berimbau and beautiful pandero techniques. So they've got some serious chops. There's huge shakers. There's bloody mammoth things. It just sounded beautiful. And he took. There was a lot of talking head songs, much more than I was expecting, and just reconstructed. And lighting was simple. At one point, they pull this light across the stage that just throws these amazing shadows everywhere. I mean, just simple ideas, but really beautiful, and just such a change from the average, drum kit, stick this here, and this dude plays guitar, and and there's amps everywhere, and so it was amazing, So I salute that guy. I mean, he's always, I got an album of his with a female guitarist singer called St. Vincent, and it's just the 2 of them in a brass band, doing pop songs, and it's amazing, just to hear that these, I don't know how old he is, but the fact that he's still sort of pushing it, he could happily just play with a rock band
easily,
do his thing,
Probably doesn't have to play at all.
No, exactly. But the work that had gone into this thing, like just the choreography, especially the 2 backing singers, man, they never stood still. They were doing stuff with their hands the whole time, like in perfect sync. So, it was beautiful. Well, I'm glad I went.
Changing the game a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally different game, that no one's playing. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. You played with the Sydney Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah.
Yeah. What capacity was that?
So I'm on their casual list.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and so I'm on casual with them. I do some ACO, Australian Chamber Orchestra, and Brandenburg Orchestra. So, basically they got a list of players, and then so there's regular players who play all the time with the orchestra. I think there's 3 and a timpanist. And so if a piece of music needs 6 players and they think you're suitable for what they're doing, you'll get a call, and if you can do it, you can do it. So I tend to get called. It's funny because there was probably a 20-year period where I didn't play with them at all. And that's fine because I don't have the orchestral chops. Like there are guys coming out of the con that's really what they're training to do. And that's
what do you mean orchestral chops? What?
So, people that have spent 8 hours a day practicing orchestral snare drum, and practicing getting good sounds on cymbals and bass drums and can sight read anything on xylophone. I never sort of did that. I can play those instruments, but not at the level these dudes can. So I tend to get called in now because the orchestra's doing a lot more commercial stuff. So it'll be the Sydney Symphony Orchestra with Eskimo Joe. Or it'll be they'll do film things. So they'll do the 3rd Harry Potter film. They'll show the film behind them, and they'll do the score
They
live.
did the Star Wars thing too, not
Star Wars, that's right. Yeah. So those things, they're commercial successes. We did like 6 Harry Potter shows. And,
off every movie.
And, and they sell out. They fill the opera house, and they're great. They're fantastic.
Of course,
and good music. So often I'll get called in because there'll be a conga part, or there'll be folky tambourine, or stuff that's in my skill set that the other players can play, but not But at the same time, I freak out a little bit because then there'll be some difficult bloody xylophone thing you got to do as well, or So there are things that I'm good at, things that I'm not so good at, things I'm terrible at, and So between all the players, you sort of get them all covered. If there's some fiendish xylophone thing, then one of the other guys are better off playing that.
Right.
Yeah. I'll have a shot at it, but it's not really my thing.
Yeah.
So it's a bit terrifying.
Yeah. And did you ever think about some stories you wanted to tell?
Oh, I couldn't think of anything.
Couldn't you?
Steve. No.
That's all good.
No. I mean, no, nothing really.
No, that
jumps out.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I remember that I think sort of made my career in a way was early 90s. I did every Friday for a year at the Basement with a band called Transformation. And so, so it was Gordon Rickmeister on kit and, great players in that band, Jonathan Rutledge on keys and Mark Coster on bass. And so Gordo would there'd be a moment in the show where there'd be a drum and percussion sort of trade-off with solo, and because he knew that I could read, and most of the percussionists he worked with couldn't, every week he'd write some bloody duet for us to finish that with. And they were just like mind-bending stuff, we'll go into 5 here and then 7, and then we'll slow the 7 down, it'll go into triplets. It's like, Gordon, come on, man, I just wanted to chill out on a Friday night. And
maybe he's just messing with you.
I'm sure there was a bit of, I wonder if you can do this one,
Yeah.
So, that was fun.
Yeah. How have you sort of developed your different styles of the different percussion instruments that you played?
A lot of listening.
Listening.
A lot of listening. So if you're going to play, salsa music, if you're going to play that, you need to, really immerse yourself in it. I'm not from that culture. I didn't grow up listening to it. So listening to it, talking to the guys about it, and what's happening here with the bell, and what does a conga do here, and when I was starting that, it was really difficult because the guys were quite closed with their information. There were a couple of timbali players in town. I'd go to see them play, and they'd be playing, but then if they spotted me in the audience, they'd pull all their playing in and just play really simple and not play. It was really weird. I mean, that's all changed now. People like Fabian and Giorgio and Steve, you can ask those guys anything, and they're very generous with their information, but it wasn't always like that. So listening, trying to talk to these guys. If there's an instrument I can't play, I'll go and have a lesson on it. If there's someone who can teach me,
that's cool.
But again, it's really hard. There are some, because I'm Italian, I wanted to get into. There's these southern Italian folk tambourine styles, but there's no one here who plays them. And listening to recordings, you can't really tell what they're doing. It's this big triplet thing. And so I had to wait till a guy came through town called Glenn Velez, who's this monster frame drum player. And so he did a masterclass, and I asked him, I said, do you know much about Tarantella tambourine. He went, yeah, what do you want to know? Calabrian, Sicilian, Neapolitan. And oh, thank God. So I had a lesson from him, found out that they do this weird flipping thing. I mean, unless someone shows you that, how the hell would you know? Yeah. It's sort of cool now with YouTube and stuff.
Yeah,
but
right.
back then, I mean, this was pre,
Yeah.
So now, this is a good thing, if you've got to play. I mean, occasionally there'll be instruments I don't even know what the name is, and someone says, oh, you got to play this, and I'll go put it into YouTube and go, oh, right, okay, it's this weird ass shaker that you play, But even then, you got to spend bloody hours, learning. So it's hard, and I draw the line at some things, like if someone asks me to play, Persian duff or something, I'll look it up and I'll go, okay, well, that's, to play like that, that's a lifetime. Or tabla, for instance. Right. I don't play tabla. I bought some in India on tour. They haven't been out of the bag.
It's another language, isn't it?
It's a whole nother life. Yeah, it's a lifetime, man.
Incredible, yeah.
You spend the first year just making tea for your teacher,
Yeah.
And then you spend the next 3 years learning to say, da, da, dip, dip, da, da, all the bowls, Then you learn the first sound. And it's like, man, I haven't got, that's...
I've got a couple of hours, I've got to...
Yeah, that's right,
yeah.
That's right, give me the abridged version.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, all right, so what's the next 12 months got in store?
Well, yeah, it's. I always think January's going to be slow, but January's filling up. It's sort of good. I get a bit nervous, but all right. So what have I got on tomorrow? I'm playing. We do a Bowie show with Jeff Duff.
It's Unzipped, is it?
Unzipped.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yep. So that's sold out tomorrow night at Camelot Lounge, which is I love playing with Jeff, and it's a great band. We've got Paul Burton on guitar tomorrow night, and Glenn Rhodes on keys, and so that's that. So
how deep into the Bowie stuff do you go?
We go up to the current album.
Oh yeah.
And really far back. Yeah. So it's a real mix.
Okay, awesome.
Of stuff. Yeah, it's great, and that's just kit. So that's fun. Sunday I got a.
How do you pull off the Mark Juliana stuff?
Oh man, you got to be kidding! Yeah, we don't do the first track on Black Star. That's for sure. Man, the first time I heard that track, I had to hold on to something.
Yeah, I know.
I thought, where's he putting that snare?
I know, it's incredible. Eh? Yeah, you can't lock it. You can't lock it down.
No, it's an offbeat semi-quaver thing
every time.
And the thing I really love about that is that any other artist, some producer would have said, "Oh, you can't play that. You can't."
Yeah.
And Bowie just would have gone, "He can play whatever he wants. This is why I got this guy
That's
here.
why we got these guys. That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So the only track we do off the last album is Lazarus.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't. I mean, it's still got chops in it when it opens up, but I just do what I do as much as I can do.
Yep.
That's a great track to play. It's and such an emotional song. The lyrics in that track. So but
that something was going on, didn't he?
Oh man, absolutely. Yeah. So very sad.
Yeah, for sure.
So and then with Duffo in about a month's time, we're doing a Lou Reed show. So there's a few tribute things. I play marimba in a band that does Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass. So Spanish Flea and Tijuana Taxi and all that. That's a lot of fun.
Yep.
Not so much originals project. The Nature Strip's gone on a big break. It's just been hard getting people to come and hear original rock music. It's really difficult.
Yep.
So that's having a bit of a break. I've got some recording with a singer in January. A few function things. I've been playing this wacky gig with this Russian trio playing for silent films. So we did this one on Sunday. It was a Russian science fiction film made in 1920. So that's up on the screen, and we're like playing music live for it, which is
Is it improv stuff or you?
No, it's mostly it's either original stuff written by one of the guys, or it's existing pieces. Okay. And because they're Russian, they're pulling out lots of little Russian tunes that fit with what's happening. And there's like this communist revolutionary thing in the film, so they're pulling out communist tunes, and it's pretty funny. But we did an Australian one called The Sentimental Bloke, and we're doing that one again in January, like around Australia Day. That's a beauty, yeah. So lots of odd projects. Playing with an orchestra with the Philharmonia Choirs in December. Yeah, real mix of stuff. Yeah, which is what I like.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Keeps it fresh. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Jess Ciampa, thank you so much for being on the Gig Life podcast.
My pleasure, Stevie. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, mate, it's been a real privilege talking to you. And,
thank you. Yeah,
and learning more about you in the last sort of month or so.
Cool.
And especially from this. And
I
think people will dig it.
Great.
And,
well, I'm in good company. Really. I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Cheers, bud.
Cheers.